Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we begin our second of five programs on how we can empower our young people to animate the deepest potential that resides deeply within all of us. Before we turn to that subject, I want to provide an update on what's going on here in Washington, D.C. As I work with people from all over the United States and, in fact, internationally to secure passage of the UAP Disclosure Act, which is now pending before the U.S. Congress. UAP meaning the unidentified anomalous phenomena, which is the new term that the U.S. government uses to refer to UFOs. And the bill that's under consideration, if passed, will begin a 7-year process of what they're calling controlled disclosure of all the information that has been gathered by the U.S. government and contracting corporations for the past 80 years since the ending of the Second World War. It's a momentous piece of legislation, arguably the most important piece of legislation in history, because it will instantaneously, globally, bring into incontrovertible reality something that most of us, in our deepest intuitive sense about who we are in relationship to the larger universe, know to be true, that we are not alone, that extraterrestrial intelligences have been with us for some time. They've been present on planet Earth, and there's evidence of sustained contact and communication. The U.S. government has upwards of, it's estimated, of a dozen retrieved spacecraft, some of which it is forcibly taken from other countries. And it also has evidence and bodies of extraterrestrials that have either been killed in the crashes or somehow met their demise in storage in various places around the United States. The United States government has kept this information more secret than even the nuclear weapons secrets, in classified categories that are above what you need to access nuclear weapons. And the reason is very simple. If the US government can crack and reverse engineer the technology that the extraterrestrials use for their craft, it could develop, as it has been, the most sophisticated military technology in history, and thereby continue to dominate the countries of the world. As we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the final days, literally, before the vote is taken between the 10th and the 15th of December, it's clear what the aerospace, military, industrial complex is doing. They've targeted several aspects of the bill, the first being the prerogative of the U.S. Congress and the U.S. government to exercise eminent domain to retrieve the information. Eminent domains means you got to do it because the U.S. government is coming in as the government to take whatever it is that they want, whether it's your house to clear land for a big freeway or an airport. The government has historically, all governments around the world have the right of eminent domain. They're opposing this. They're also opposing the right of the U.S. Congress, as it seeks the information, to use subpoena power. And that's the power through the courts to compel a person to testify or to compel a person to reveal evidence to the state. Again, this is a right and a prerogative used by all governments everywhere in the world because the governments are the supreme power in any given nation state. And even though there's checks and balances, the government in and of itself retains the right of ultimate decision-making and power. The third area that is problematic is the whole area that comes out of the reality that it was the creation of the Atomic Energy Act back in the 1940s, after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when the United States realized that it had in its possession the capacity to destroy the world through nuclear weapons. And President Truman created the Atomic Energy Act, and the initial UFO research and development was conducted within the Energy Department and the Defense Department as part of the Atomic Energy Program. And one of the clauses in that act talks about the fact that the government has to keep classified any information relating to atomic energy and atomic radiation. And so the pushback by the Defense Department and the defense industry is that anything that they have from the UFOs that is in any way related to atomic radiation or energy or weapons has to be kept out of the deal. So there's various parts of the bill that are problematic. Their intent is to kill the bill entirely because they believe, as they're asserting, that this isn't the right time. And if they're going to be forced into a compromise, they are making it clear that they want to take all the teeth out of the bill. So there's effectively no way to enforce the progress of disclosure. So this is a battle royale between Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, and the new Speaker of the House, the right-wing Republicans who have sold their souls to the devil of the military-industrial complex. Mike Rogers, who's from Alabama in the Deep South, Republican, who is the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And if you look at his contribution list, he gets more contributions from the defense industry than any other person in the Armed Services Committee, and I think any other person in the entire House of Representatives. And then there's Mike Turner up in the 10th District of Ohio. And he's the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. And his district is in that part of Ohio that houses Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the largest Air Force base in the world, which since the 1940s has been the military installation to which all the aircraft taken from the UFOs and what they call the biologics, the extraterrestrial entities have been taken and then later distributed to other parts of the United States. And guess what? All the major defense contractors have major installations around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and give Mike Turner, like Mike Rogers, massive amounts of money. Lockheed Martin, Grumman, Raytheon, Boeing, Radiance Technologies, all the big defense aerospace firms are in Ohio, are in Alabama, and are major contributors to Senator Mitch McConnell and the new Speaker, Mike Johnson. So that's what we're up against. And we know who Goliath is. And the question is, how does David find those five little stones and use our little slingshot to bring down Goliath and ensure that this piece of legislation survives intact? And it could, because it's had bipartisan support up to the present time, and moves into law, signed by President Biden on or about the 20th of December. If that happens, human history will begin to change, because we will, as a species, be confronted for the first time ever with a narrative that could bring us all together and transcend and include all of our contradictions into a higher synthesis of awareness that we're here for a purpose. And our purpose is to be ambassadors of planet Earth, living in a synergistic, harmonious relationship with each other and with the larger planetary ecology. And as the extraterrestrial galactic civilizations make their presence known on our planet, it is the human race, us little human beings, that are the only species fully capable of not only communing with them, but also beginning that extraordinary cosmic journey off our planet into the galactic void. It's an amazing moment to be alive. And I can't tell you how exciting it is for me personally to be here in Washington, right by the Supreme Court, right across the street from the Capitol. And on the other side is the Hart Senate building at this moment when all this is being transacted. So day by day, until we know what the vote is, I'm going to bring updates, and we'll have various other people joining me from time to time to bring their perspectives. So thank you, everyone. Write your congressional rep, write your senator today, and all you have to say is, dear Senator, dear Congressperson, support the UAP Disclosure Act. That's all you have to say. So thank you. And we'll now turn to our program at hand. I want to welcome Dehanna Rice, our convener, who you all know well, an extraordinary psychotherapist and Polarity practitioner who has convened many programs on Humanity Rising. And so, Dehanna, thank you so much. And I turn the program over to you.
Thank you so much, Jim. Wow, what a momentous occasion here that we're under. I just wanted to open up because we in the green room were talking about this amazing practitioner that I'm about to present, that she has photos that she has shot of UFOs, and she wants to be protected if she does share them, because some people have been ostracized and God knows what, when they do share. So I want to know, Kay, for her, she's like, should I share or not? Goliath is upon us.
You're among friends, Stefanie.
Yeah, okay. Humanity Rising is going to rise up, and the slingshot is going to But what a time. Thank you, Jim. I am so moved by this time. We could talk more about UFOs and what's going on in our world at this momentous occasion, but I'm here to talk about the youth. And this is a program that I've been thinking and dreaming about for about 10 years. I am a polarity practitioner. I do energy-based work, and we're going to do a little bit of what I would offer the young people because of their nervous systems being bombarded by this type of information. I mean, their young minds is so bombarded by so much information with the internet, AI. It's the generation that is really going to utilize some of this tech and then get an education with it that's completely different from the other generations. So we really do have to support them in a different way. And my impetus is showing natural medicine, showing ways for you to go within yourself and take charge of your nervous systems, and do it with the brain becoming so accommodating, and new dendrites and new pathways to develop at this stage of their lives. So I'm going to start with a little bit of sound, and then I'm going to do some coherent breathing, which this community knows about. We have been breathing together before. And then I'm going to add a little bit of what's called open focus meditation. This is from the late, great Les Femi, who was the godfather of biofeedback. We just lost his widow, Sharon Shore Femi, who did come on with my self-health empowerment weeks here in Humanity Rising. So I invite you to just lower your eyes if you feel comfortable. Put your feet flat on the floor. Feel yourself grounded with your palms facing down on your lap. And just going to clear the air with the C tuner. Clearing the nervous system. Calming it down, opening up the heart field. Taking a nice deep breath in.
Battery 5. Connected to iPhone.
And I'm going to start my 2-bell track. There is a 2 tone, a low tone that will breathe out. That is the high tone we will be breathing in together. Beautiful. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in as if you're on a beach and a wave is washing up the sides of you. And breathing out as the wave washes down. Breathing in gently, like you're sipping it in through a straw. And breathing out, letting go. Breathing in, imagine the wave inside of you. Breathing out, the wave washes down the balls of the feet, letting go of what no longer serves you. Breathing in, inside, washing away any toxins, anything you want to release. Breathing in, inside, letting go through the balls of the feet. Beautiful. Let's do a circuit. Breathing in, focus on the top of your head. And breathing out, focus on the base of your spine. Breathing in, top of the head, every little hair follicle. And breathing out, base of the spine, the whole pelvic basin expanding. in new energy into the head, through the spinal cord, and releasing base of the spine. Breathing in gently and breathing out gently. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in new energy into your head. Breathing out, the spinal cord is just being bathed by beautiful light. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in one more time. And breathing out. Now, let your breath go whichever rhythm it wants to. Keeping your eyes lowered or closed, I want you to listen to my voice, and I'm going to guide you with your imagination that is subtle and effortless. I want you to imagine the space inside your nose. The space as you breathe in, feeling the air, and breathing out as the air moves out. Can you imagine the feeling of the space of each eyeball, the circumference of each eyeball as it drops down into your head? Deeper and deeper. Feeling of that space. Can you imagine the feeling of the space of each exterior ear, the top of your ear, the middle of your ear, the ear lobe, the tragus, that little lip, that tongue that touches your cheek, all the exterior ear. Now, can you imagine the feeling of each exterior ear, at the same time, the space between each ear, the inner ear, inside the brain tissue to the other inner ear, the middle ear and the exterior of the other ear, the whole line throughout the head, the feeling of that space. Can you imagine the feeling of the space from the tip of your chin to the back of your head, and all the feeling of that space as the head is surrounded by space, penetrated by space, floating in space? Feeling that, releasing that, letting go all of the tension in the brain, in the head, stress is totally letting go at this space. Feeling that floating head. Beautiful. And that is coming to a close. Feeling yourself come into the body. You can open your eyes. Welcome back. I hope you had a little bit of a experience. We do work with the entire whole body and expand out with this open focus meditation out to infinity. So I'm just excited to introduce you to an amazing practitioner that I was honored to meet. We were both members of Design Science Studio, and Stefanie just always stood out to me. She always had such a visionary experience with her life that she shared, and always the capabilities of bringing more information into what we were doing. It's part of Buckminster Fuller Institute. It goes out to basically globally. And this particular group for me during the pandemic was my lifeline, because I had just moved from New York and I was online, and this community was so heartfelt and so about the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Developmental Goals. They were focused on that. And there are a lot of artists and architects with the Buckminster Fuller. He influenced all of us in humanity, because he gave us the reality that we have all the resources to change our world into a real utopian place. It's just how are we allocating it? This is something that Jim is, coming up against as a challenge. Where are we going to, put our focus for humanity to rise? And so I invite Stefanie to come on. And I'm so happy to see you again. This is your time today to really share for our group, the Adulting Alliance. This is, again, 18 to 25-year-olds, the emerging adults that we're here to support, and how your visionary work, your photography, you're looking at the world and opening up the space, just we came off of space, to really encompass new visions. And for me, it's so important. I don't know about you, Steph, but young people are going to teach us a lot. I really feel that. Every time I teach different age groups, I'm always open to, what do you think about what I'm presenting, and take it to the next level. And I think Bucky was like that too. He always encouraged people to think bigger and more expanded. And I know that you know a lot more about Buckminster Fuller than I do. I was always learning in the DSS groups. So I encourage you to share that philosophies that I know he influenced you, as Da Vinci did. So please share with us, and I'm so looking forward to seeing your video again. Everybody is going to enjoy this so much, and we will talk a little bit more when you feel comfortable about the UFO pictures. I want to make sure you feel comfortable, because we talked in the green room with Jim about it, but it's really how you feel, and sharing. So the floor is yours, dear. Take it over.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it is, yeah. Hi, great to see you all. Thank you so much for having me here. Deanna, you just brought up a lot of things. So just to, first of all, with the UFO pictures, because we started talking about that, and I consider them flying objects. And, part of the observations and experiences that I've had. And, when you've also spoken about the design science in Buckminster Fuller Institute, and with Buckminster Fuller, what I learned about him was something that was similar to a way of experiencing the world, because he actually couldn't really see or hear very well. So his understanding of the world was really based on how he sensed it and felt it. So it was undeniable to him that this world of boxes that humans have created was very different from the way the rest of nature was creating. And so there's lots of stories about him, but, basically coming to a point where he was going to take his life due to personal life problems, and how he couldn't really fit into the world, and instead turned to nature. And he wasn't necessarily trying to mimic it as much as he was basically looking for how nature grows and how nature creates the rest of nature. And because as humans, we've been making lots and lots and lots of boxes, bigger and bigger and smaller, and they've really separated us in so many ways, but it's not like the rest of nature growing. And I think that's really important for youth today, because whole entire ways of designing and creating can be based on something other than the box, which grows new things and new jobs and new designs. And I think that's really important. He literally had a football field full of information. But like, the interesting thing with this is just before COVID, I was photographing for schools and kids and stuff like that. A whole other subject too, because language and words have had so much influence on where we've been going and how where we are in a way. But everyone calls what I do, photography, as shooting, right? And so we were doing a school shoot, is what the young people I was photographing with were saying, right? Here we have a school shoot. Meanwhile, there's lockdowns everywhere and things are really happening like that. But just to get back to that, I would go around because I had read this great book by this woman, Patricia Ravasio, that was called The Girl from Spaceship Earth, which really taught me about Bucky, because I didn't read his works or anything. I just became fascinated by what I learned in that book about how he really saw from a cosmic perspective, from a nature perspective. And because of my hearing and visual issues, my work is based on observation. It's not what I read in a book. It's how I looked at things and what I learned or observed or think about them. And so like that way of thinking is really important to give back to youth, because so often it's about what we read in books rather than what we observe and what we see in the world. So I would go around and I would ask the kids over and over, have you ever heard of Buckminster Fuller? No. Have you ever heard of Nikola Tesla? Oh, the guy who makes the cars? No. Right? So basically there was this way in which people don't really even remember who these people are, because it got so pushed down, because it's like Tesla, free energy, like people wanted to monetize it. So we can see how we got here, and that's true in everything Jim is doing too. Like there's ways in which technology and all these things have advanced based on the warring world that has been created. Yet Buckminster Fuller created like this world game and these ways to grow and share. And apparently there were two games of Monopoly made at the same time. One was Monopoly and one was a game where it wasn't about Monopoly. It was about like, what if it's shared, resources are shared, like the trees do, and the mushrooms, and like all the rest of nature does it in these other ways than what we have come up with, basically. So it really opens fields of information, fields of everything to me. And so basically, so that's a lot. That's a lot. Also, design science. Something about design science is that what I learned about design science, it was a way of putting together things in ways that others don't normally put things together. And so for me, like this art, science, nature aspect, it's like art and science don't normally go together, but the closer, there's some Da Vinci quote about it, but the further you go in art or you get to science, I'm not entirely sure of the quote, but it's like, to me, my work, as an artist has been like, fine art is what I went to school for. And if people were here yesterday, I did share that, and I'm getting a lot of things clicking here. But I did share that school was really hard for me, and what that was about was like, my eyes didn't work the way they were to work for school, basically. I wasn't able to track easily. And I have a video to speak about this for me. And I'm going to share the video soon, because the video opens up more questions, because it was sort of going through these experiences, and also being able to learn how to talk about them so people can understand what I'm even speaking about. Because sometimes we use words and we think we understand them, but I've come to understand that we don't necessarily understand them. So I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I know people have questions with. If there are questions in the chat, I'll look at those. And then I have some other images. Some are the ones that are in the video to sort of say what they are. And then some other things in there, and we'll see about those other pictures later. So I'm gonna share this video now, and let's see. Okay, let's just go back here. One of my very first memories was standing right up close to a television set. And And the reason why I did that was because I went up to turn it up all the way. I couldn't hear it, yet I was so delighted to feel it, to feel the sound, and to see the light undulating. It was such a beautiful memory. I was 2, and it was pretty much the same time that my mom realized that I was having a hard time hearing. That experience informed me of something, of feeling sound and seeing vibration like this picture. So between 1 and 5, there's this inner tripod that forms, and the senses go on top. Well, if there's an issue with ear infections, hearing, eyes, head trauma, emotional trauma, the information might not go where it needs to go. That happened for me, and I believe many people. I was challenged by things that really weren't understood until later, like being very right brain in a left brain world. I didn't have full-on stereo vision, and focus was an issue. Well, how does one focus and concentrate when one's eyes aren't moving smoothly or tracking properly? Tracking became one of the sensory exercises that I did, and it was from that experience that I created this photographic series called A Light Between Heaven and Earth, which is birds in flight. The study of birds and nature and what I was seeing within it led me to the study of biomimicry. Biomimicry is the study of nature, and instead of bioutilizing, it looks at the blueprints. Well, I've been studying spider webs, and webs have become a fascination for me. When I think of spider webs, I think of how we are in utero. We're undulating in this field, and the spiders are on that field, and on that web, and in the movement. And they build those webs and rebuild them each day, and in feeling the field around them, they can respond to the vibration. If something gets caught, they know where to go. They feel it. They actually tune it. To me, it's a great example of a feedback loop. Well, something that I noticed was in my right ear, it felt like the sound wasn't bouncing back. Well, if people can echolocate, which they can, then sound bounces back. I felt like I wasn't getting that feedback information in my right ear, which meant maybe it wasn't going to the left side of my brain. I also learned about mirroring, which is crossing over the brain. The thing about mirroring is it's so embedded in the way we learn in those formative years of our lives. We're mirroring our parents and everything around us. So I thought about mirroring in the sense of giving the other side of my brain information it wasn't normally getting. So I did an experiment. And in the experiment, I took an existing stereo microphone. So 2 mics, a left and a right, and I swapped them. The channel from the left went to the right, and the right went to the left. And I walked around the world, bringing in the sound of everything around me. The thing that it did was it calmed my nervous system and brought me into a different state. The experience was so enjoyable because it's not just amplification, it's feeding new information. So my brain was getting this new information from the environment around me. So you know what it did? It fixed my stereo vision. The purpose of sharing my personal story is so that you can get a feel for my creativity and thinking and some of what I have to offer that can add value to a team of people who are creating experiences and products that can enhance and change people's lives. I'm gonna stop that screen share. Let's see. Seems like it's still playing, so. Do you still hear it playing? I'll stop now. Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for watching that. And there's a bunch of things that I said in there that I can say a lot about. So one of the things that I want to say is I speak about being right brain in a left brain world, right? The world isn't left brain, but the way that humans have been mostly educating is based on left brain thinking. And someone who really shared this information with me was Leonard Shlain, who was a brain surgeon, actually, and he wrote some books, one of them called The Goddess and the Word. And what he explained was about the rods and the cones and how our eyes basically really shaped our brains from the hunters and gatherers. Okay, so basically when it's the rods that are more of the gathering way out here, and the cones are more for the focus of tracking, which is very much about school, hunting, close up, all these things. So basically, the rods. So I just want to say that in that rod state, when we're open wide, it's very much a state that we come in with, because we don't have the muscles yet to polarize together. They're not developed yet. We basically learn that over time. And this way of like letting eyes rest out, is a way of taking a whole in, which like the gathering was able to do, keep track of everyone, a whole expansive view. So basically, my eyes would rest out. It actually took me effort to pull them together. So when I said I didn't have stereo vision, which is another thing that people, it's almost like I didn't have it, then I have it, now I can explain it, because I couldn't explain the way that I saw before, nor did I understand other people didn't have that issue. But for those of you who understand photography, it was very much like a 35 millimeter 1.4, a wide open lens. And basically everywhere I looked, I would need to refocus for dimension. Okay, it's hard to understand, but it was like I would have to refocus my camera, like a manual camera, with my eyes for dimensionality. And the rest of the time, like I couldn't always see the things that other people saw. I missed the things. I missed so much information in trying to get to that point, like driving. I'll explain that, but it's sort of like in school, I was the kid who would be like, wait a minute, how come everybody knows we have a test? Like I didn't know what was going on part of the time. And at other times I couldn't understand things that people weren't seeing, weren't looking at, didn't understand, because of this other way of, and I know that like, with the full body stuff, like, I'm picking up different information. It also, that state of focal is, in ways, there have been times that I would be so hyper focused in a sense that, like, if I'm talking to someone, that's all there is, like that's all that I can see, and then I go refocus over here. So it also caused me some problems, like on a personal level, because if I was very, very focused with someone, more focused than they'd ever been focused with before, and then I'm over here, then I've left that and I'm in something else now. So I think that took me a lot to learn too, of not being, it's like literally need to refocus. And so that had its own challenges for me. I was saying, I might have to come back to something, but so, okay, I'm going to talk about synesthesia. So as I said, at that very young age, I could feel the sound, right? I could feel it, and I could see the sound, feel it, like, yes, see the light, but feel it, like I could feel it. I had these experiences. So in this state out here, what I noticed was that, and I had people tell me about this before, but like when I would just be relaxed, okay, and I would be out here, I would literally feel, so like I showed photos of birds, right? I would literally feel them flapping, not how they emotionally felt. Like I literally would feel the field vibrating, something, or if someone was riding a bicycle past me, I could feel the gait, or walking, or lots of people and stuff. So there was times where I didn't speak much, because I was just, it was so much information coming through. And so just going back to those states. So first of all, in this state with all that information coming through, that basically I would feel part of everything. I would sometimes almost feel disappearing. And what I learned later is people would refer to that as samadhi. And, to me, it's that state. And even that book, The Greatest Secret, the woman who wrote The Secret, she basically talks about how we hold our eyes, being aware of the field. So when I was really calm and taken care of and felt safe, like I could get into that state very easily without anything. And I think that's that childlike wonder that we had. everyone wants to look through a child's eyes and, get back to that state. And there is a way that I believe it's about the optics and the optic nerve and that kind of thing. So, to me, there's so much to learn from these things, and in certain ways, and I'll share later some of the ways that I see. I have literally had blind people, legally blind people, tell me they see this way about unfocused light and stuff like that. So like there's all this information that is just coming through that we can learn about. And so, another great example is I went to a concert, and I was thinking about this with a friend, because with our senses, we got boxed in. It's like the hearing, the eyes, everything is its own, and they're overlapping. Some people taste color. Some people, it used to be called a condition, but I really believe that we have this capacity that we've barely tapped into. And it's such an important time to tap into it, because here we are, AI is on the rise and all this. And, I believe that we have so much more than we're taught, and we can go, really explore the senses in ways that we couldn't before. There's great books. There's a guy who was legally blind who wrote a book called and there was light, and that's an incredible story, because he talks about remembering his hands before he lost his sight as like paddles, because every finger has a sensor. And so I think that it just adds so much to just to the joy of life to be able to experience the senses like this. So just, and even in speaking of that, the reason why I know that even is because after I did this thing of fixing my eyes, what happened was, and I'm going to talk about my sensory therapist in a minute, but what happened was, because she basically, when I was going through sensory therapy, I did some vision exercises. I fixed the tracking, so I smoothed that out. I didn't yet have the depth perception, so that I didn't need to refocus. I did wear prisms some of the time to help me do that without me doing the work, because she said, and I think it's because of this, but she said to me, it may change the way that you see. And I know how much that means to you. At the time, I didn't think I thought it was okay, but I didn't actually go through the process of doing it through the eye exercises that I might have been given going onward. And so basically, after I found out that I had stereo vision again, I literally forgot how and what I did with my eyes. And I tell you that I practically broke, because those were my gifts. Like, that was like art and seeing and these things. This is the gifts that I had. And here I was like in a state in my life where, I also, sometimes we we assist each other in relationships. Like, as I said, I was very right brain. Well, my partner was left brain. And when I wasn't, not left, I'm going to go back to Leonard Shlain again, talking about the left and the right, because I don't want to misunderstand this information. I really believe that we're all whole brain, and how we've been using it is what has happened. But she was much more, and it was a woman, much better at all the, all that executive functioning stuff. So I didn't have enough to lean on. I really felt like a tree fell over. I felt like I lost it, and it was terrible. And I think like from going through that experience, and then, I had a kid that we realized, like, they did all the testing in school, all these different things. Like, I realized she was having an issue. And when I was writing some of this about this information, I asked her to do like an eye test, and I checked her tracking, and it was like all over the place. But she goes tested in school, 20, her vision was good, all these things, but we're missing certain things. So when we took her to go get her eyes checked, I saw the exercises again, and I remembered. And in doing them, infusing my eyes and the way that I was holding them, it brought it back. So now I have both, whatever, I have access to both, and I think that's so important also, because like, I met a friend of mine who, has, she had a severe cleft palate, And when I met her, one of her eyes was very inward. And in talking to her and spending time with her, I started noticing that she was looking at me and she was able to use her eye. And she said that I taught her that she could, because she kept putting an eye patch on there. That's what they told her to do. So I think that there's ways that that we have so much more capacity than sometimes we're taught. And I believe that anybody who has senses or different ways, then we all have that capacity, because we all have the same, right? So when I see things, I can show other people and they could see them. So I'm not saying, oh, I see this way, but we all have that capacity. And like the whole brain, the importance of the whole brain and whole brain thinking, I just think that's so important. And like, dolphins, right? Like, the crossover. Okay, that's what I'm going to cook in the crossover. So I'll come back to dolphins later. I spoke about mirroring and crossing over. Okay, and I can see in this video where, like, it's in the stages of the next phase of this video. But in the mirroring, right, in those first, how many years of our lives, we're mirroring everything. We mirror everything around us, and so the crossing over is the aspect where I believe when we do more and more and more of that, we're growing that aspect of whole back together. So here's a great example. So Da Vinci was somebody who was like Buckminster Fuller in a sense. Buckminster Fuller learned a lot from him, but he learned from nature. He also had some issues with his senses, and he could visualize from above, and he could do all these different things with the way that his brain worked. He even wrote backwards. Okay, so like, how many people, I can't see you, right? But just if you're not driving, just consider to do this with me. But like, basically, he wrote backwards, and my sensory therapist taught me this because I had to do some of these exercises. So some of the things were about crossing over. Okay, for me, it was about getting myself in dimensional space-time, getting the eyes moving, right? All these different things. So he wrote backwards. So what I'd like you to do is understand here. So when we hold up our hands, because I want to show you all, you could write backwards too, right here, right now. Like, I know it sounds like, oh no, I can't possibly write backwards, but we can, because we have these mirror neurons that are working all the time. And right, so I'm just going to hold up my hands, and if you hold up your hands right now with me, please. I can't see you, but just imagine you're doing it. If you write your name, but you just pay attention to your dominant hand and let the other hand just mirror along and not think. If you think too much, you will just do it the same way. But if you just do it, you'll just start writing backwards. Okay, and this is just what occurs naturally. So I literally like open a book, and then I would write with one hand and just do backwards. And after a little bit of time, like, I noticed that my hand was starting to learn how to do it, because it gets in the body, and it's something that we think that we can't do. And Da Vinci also just study nature all the time. And I think that's what's so important for these young folks. Get back to nature. We are nature. And I think we forget that. It's like, oh, nature's out there. If you get on your iPhone and you look up emojis, which is like a common language of most young adults today, emoji language, right? If you put in forest or woods, try it out. You get very little response. It's like a deer and a tree without roots. Or you put in woods and you get a stack of woods. And I think it's a target range or something like that, which is very odd. But these things shape us and shape what we understand. So okay, so I'll talk about Rita. So Rita was my sensory therapist, and Rita really, really understood my brain more than anybody I had ever met. And I was so grateful for that, because she's also a friend. But she reminded me of my gifts. And in that, I was able to really embrace them even more, and feel like it really mattered. And she would say my brain was kind of like a physicist, which because of the way that I see light makes sense to me now. And also someone who's dyslexic, but when I was in school, it was sort of like my parents tested me to say, hey, we just want to know what's going on with this kid because she seems smart, but we can't tell. And like I was in like learned information in school, I was like, here's the midline, I was down here. And then for things that weren't learned, I was like off here. And they didn't know really what to do with me. So they let me do art because the rest of school is really hard. And as I shared, you can understand some of the reasons why. So I also spoke about feedback loops and echolocation, right? So, oh, I know what I was going to say earlier. I was talking about going to I talked about going to a concert. Okay. Most of the time people understand sound, felt, vibration at a concert because it's so loud. We feel it. Right. And what I notice is that a lot of times I do know people who are losing their hearing. Like I know a few people who were losing hearing early on, and the way that they perceive the world is very intuitive based. And one of them, I was trying to understand how she was perceiving and if she was feeling it in her body. And we had that discussion because she, like older people that I know, speak about it being very isolating to be losing your hearing. And part of that is by the environments that we build and we make, right? Because people go to places like restaurants and things, and in these boxes that are getting higher and higher, the sound just bounces all around. In preschools, the sound is bouncing all around and it causes people to shut down. And we don't want that shutting down anymore. Like we want to be able to access our senses. So like the thing that I did at this concert, because I was thinking about my friend who said she said, someone my age was saying how she felt isolated from this experience. And I know my mom has said that before, of the experience of not hearing well. So I just started thinking about it, and I put my hands on a metal bar that was at this concert, and I could, feel it all in the bar. And I love that. I love feeding it into my body because I want it in that way. And so I put my hands on the bar of this metal bar that's there that people touch all the time. And I offered some people to touch it, just to put their hands on it. And they were so amazed by the feeling of feeling it in their hands. Like I literally, one guy had one hand on it. He's another photographer that I know. And he had one hand on the bar. And I walked away and I looked from afar and he had two hands on the bar and he was just holding it. I walked back and he was just like, wow. Right. And other people were like, wow, like this way that we don't realize that it's all around us. It's not just coming in here. And I think that for people creating technologies, like we got to make new technologies so that it comes in other ways than just our ears. It comes in full body. I just think is so important for people. So, I'm speaking to these young people with ideas and technologies that could be creating and also may need it themselves. But these things are needed here. Like there's so many people who are isolated. Now we know neural pathways grow no matter how old or young we are. They grow all the time. And that information isn't that new for us as humans. It's, we thought, oh, we go like this and we go like this, but that's not the case. So basically, I also want to go back to when I was talking about this state. Sorry, I'm like all over the place, but when I was talking about this wide open state, okay, I told you that I went into a depression, and I also did some neural feedback at the time as training my eyes. And I'd come in at different times. And, one time I was in a rush and I didn't want to go upstairs in such a rush. So I started just looking at the birds, like I look at them and just feel them and just calm down in that state. And I go back upstairs and she puts the things on my head. And she said, what did you do? And I told her what I did. And she said, well, you're in theta. So I was like, later on, I was like, that's theta. That's a theta state. And that's a programming state of us as younger when the mirrors are mirroring and programming us, basically. And it's a state where we feel part of everything. And I think it's so important also, like just remembering back to my children who are twins, before they went to school, right? When one walked, we all clapped. They both clapped. That's what happens. And then the minute they're in school, right, there's this competitiveness. Everything is top of the class, or who's the best, or who's good at that, or, and we shut down, I believe. And I think that's where that thing turns on itself, and we're kind of into the world that is a versus rather than an end. And I think that we have to get back to the end of it, because even in that feedback loops, right, when we're in the verses, the feedback loops get stuck, right? And trauma keeps being created. So the ends kind of open the fields up. So lots of skipping around on that. And I think I'm going to, I haven't really been able to look at the chat. It's like a lot of information coming in as I'm speaking, obviously. So I'm going to share some photos, like sort of like just go through and also just share. I'll just share this deck right here. Some you've seen before, so I'll just show you again because it might be hard to have known what they were. So I'm just going to come back and share my screen again with, not that, sorry. It's right here. Oop. Haha. Okay. So, perspectives on art and vision. So just back to art, I really believe that we are all creators. We all have the ability to express. And I think it's part of our, like, creativity is our birthright. And geesh, lots of things happening with the phone here. Okay. So I'm just going to share some of these slides. So basically, I'm sharing these because at a young age, probably like 4th grade, I started doodling. And doodling was actually the way that I focused. It was like, that was how I paid attention. It wasn't like I wasn't paying attention. It literally was my anchor, my way to pay attention. And usually what I was doing was I wasn't thinking beforehand. I was just drawing the sound that I was listening to. I was just drawing sound, just drawing, and, it continues on. And it's usually sound or something I'm listening to, as it's these intricate drawings. But, a lot of times I remember what I was listening to, or what I learned while I was listening or drawing that particular thing. So just sort of sharing these kind of, I call them doodles, because that's what I was doing. I was just doodling. And, I would do it on napkins and anywhere I was, basically, just doodling to pay attention. And yeah. And so if you were with us yesterday, what I spoke about is that I landed in this field of motion graphics for television. And I was very lucky to be using this state-of-the-art equipment about painting with light. And so these are some frames, it's like some frames of it. And what I'm trying to show here is that what I was really interested in is motion and light. And so I would take like basically here, and the next one shows it better, because I would take like wireframe and spin them in time. And like, I just loved the way things spun in time and looked, because I sort of like, just fascinated with time, because, it's, light and time changes, and it's just, it was very interesting to me. So I basically, when I left that field, and a whole other stories, I also got back into photography. So I taught motion graphics at a university. And then I was also studying photography because I could take a class, and I kind of went back to it because what I really wanted to do was I somehow wanted to learn how to like put all the motion into one frame. And I think part of it was that dimensionality was so important to me, because I mean, like literally, like I don't know how many people you know who could do this, but I could strap binoculars to my head and somebody could drive me around because I wanted the dimensionality of everything. And it's like, you know, that's for some people, that's like way sensory overload, you know. For me, that's just something that I loved. And I, you know, with dimensionality, I'm even, you know, I've gone into like the VR world as well, because there's a dimensionality and a playing and painting with light that I love. So basically what I wanted to learn to do was like, how do I do it in one frame, you know, instead? And I just like, when I'm sharing these images and things, like, these are not AI, they're not computer generated, they're not like photoshopped, maybe some color correction, but I'm capturing the motion. And as I said, these were tracking exercises that I did. So I will be tracking and moving with it. And, you know, nothing that I take could be taken if I was using an autofocus. And I think this is super important because autofocus wouldn't capture what I want. So many people are relying on these things, or they say their eyes aren't good or whatnot. But like, when one has a manual focus camera in their hands, all you have to do is move the tiniest bit and the whole world changes. So it's sort of like, you know, how do we even talk about dimension? You know, the perspectives are unlimited in a sense. So this was a series that I did. I'm just showing a couple from these, just based on how I was playing with the light and the motion. And okay, so as I said, I was with the sensory therapist, and I had listened to this music video, and it's called The Cosmos. It's called it was called by Melody Sheep, called We Are All Connected. And so, as I shared before, I really didn't take science, I didn't take math, I mostly took art. So I didn't have that frame. I felt it, but I didn't like understand it in a certain way. So I listened to that music video, and it taught me like so much. It just, the guy, Melody Sheep, the guy basically cut together a music video of Carl Sagan and Richard Feynman, and they were singing it. So it was just like a music singing video that taught me science. And Richard Feynman talked about the light and how it bounced around the room and through space. And like, when you saw that and felt that and experienced that, what a pleasure it was. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I see. I'm going to go photograph it. So I sort of was trying to like literally figure out how I see. And I noticed that if I like squint and look at light, I have like, you know, I can have like light shows that, you know, I can't yet capture. Like, I have shows of light in my eyes all the time if I'm looking to the light, on my eyelashes, bouncing off my face. Like, I just see light in those ways. So I was like, you know, I squinting, you know, I took a piece of paper and I crumbled it and like sort of got this piece. But with him saying that, it kind of started this wonder project, and how we're a way for the cosmos to know itself. Because, you know, when I think I mentioned that Sadhguru, a quote about how when our models are human models or anything less than cosmic models, creates suffering. And I really see that and believe that. So sort of like this way of understanding that we are a reflection of micro, macro, everything. So, you know, this is condensation on the window. And, you know, some of this is the play with me and the camera, right? But these are all in camera. And yeah, as the first frame you saw with my name on it, also condensation on the window. I have a whole series of those also on the car windshield with sound on them. I don't think they're in this deck, but where you see the sound of the water. And, you know, this is a coffee cup in the morning. And, you know, when the light is coming in certain ways, there's rain, you know, the rainbow is light and water and refraction, and it's everywhere. It's not just a rainbow once a month or year, you know, it's everywhere. You start to see it everywhere. If I zoomed in to this, you sort of, it almost feels like space, and it's a coffee cup again. And here we have another one, and I did bring this one closer so you get a sense. But, you know, you can see different things in here, you know, but it really feels like that sense of space, yet it's just steam, and it's steam acting in the environment like space is everywhere. yeah, and light plays everywhere. So in some places I can show it, if you can see it, you can capture it, basically. And that's one of the things I do too. I do help people photograph the way that they see if they don't know how to do that yet, because I understand that very well how to do that. So this one, if anyone wants to take some guesses what this is in the chat, please feel free to do that. But I mean, I'll tell you too. I'll tell you too. This is literally, well, maybe I'll just show the next slide and come back while people are guessing, because you probably still didn't know. Okay, so wait, I'm going to go back. So I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay, so basically this is one single drop of water on my finger. I'm just moving around, and you could see all that. And it's like I can see it if I hold my it's this, basically. I'm holding my hand all the way up here with a drop of water, focusing the camera, right? And part of this came about because when I would swim in the morning, I would see water and light on my hands, and so this is kind of showing that. So while you might not understand what this is literally like my hand with water on it. And I'm kind of going to zoom in here to this close up. I don't know if you see this little something over in the right, and that's sort of close up, and you can see the way light is kind of stacking on itself. And then in order to show that even more, because anything I do with a photograph, I can do with video, right? So I'm going to share this video with you. And now what you hear is, while I was doing that, somebody turned on a power tool. And I want you to see what it's doing to the water on my fingers when they turn it on. And I think that's super important because we are made of water and we vibrate with what's going on around us. And so for those people who have kids, what we call on the field, or, more, and like I said yesterday, we're all on the field, all of us, right? It's just different areas and places within it. But there's people who see and feel things that others don't, and then they're put down because of it, or they're ostracized because they're crying when something is occurring, but like it's there, it's really there. And I think we have to have more compassion for how others are experiencing the world based on, because if people see it and they know it, but if they don't, it's misunderstood. So I just wanted to really share that, and my sensory therapist Rita would play that for the parents of the kids that she would be seeing. So this, as I said, I wouldn't be able to capture what I capture if I couldn't see it. And so this is not light hitting any object. This is sound on a bag vibrating. So it's unfocused light, which I'm focusing. And it's kind of some of the stuff that legally blind people have told me they see things like this. So I'm going to just share another one of those where it's sound, basically. And I see things in here. If anyone sees anything in here, write that in the chat too. It'd be great. Great to know what you see. I definitely see things in this. So again, observations. Okay. Anybody, please feel free to write what you think this is as well. I think it's where, to me, like the idea of particle and wave makes sense. I have another video. It's not in this deck or anything, but I was going to share that, but I shouldn't even bring it up because it's not here with us now. But anyway, this is a laser beam. And I find that really interesting because it's also made of particles. And I also think of like how when we all focus together, or how all, how focus is so important. We're all together focusing, we can create a beam, or how we are even how we are focusing our attention, and how much of our attention is getting scattered all over the place by everything around us, and how focus is so important. It's almost everything, it shapes things. So speaking of the shape of things, I know it's a lot of input, but this is a soap bubble. And so I have had fascination with soap bubbles, because on them, within them, like I see cells, I see mitochondria, I see like all kinds of things happening with soap bubbles. And I have a video on my site of soap bubbles being played with at night. And this is just, I'm sort of standing in the bubble, basically, in this one, looking to the trees. It also feels like sound to me, which is what I love about this one. And then we play with bubbles at night. And we called it bubblescape experiences, taking people into the woods and playing with bubbles at night. And every light you see in that bubble is somebody putting light upon it. So you see the person holding the red light, it's reflected everywhere. So when I show this one, this is an undulating bubble, which has about 8 people standing around playing with that light. I'm using a black light in that particular one. So the purple, while I'm filming, I'm also shining a light on it, which is kind of funny, but I do have a video of this because it wasn't just a still, it was a video. And I'm going to just skip over, you saw these, but this is spider webs in motion. So it's like, it kind of makes sense how I would go there from the video work that I had done. But I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by, this is water moving on these lines, that it's undulating. And, we think of information being stored, right? It looks like that to me. It's just like here too. And it's sort of the spheres overlapping and intersecting, like it's, I can't even imagine that experience for a spider. It's pretty wild, going the wrong way. Hold on. And, this sort of, that, wide angle of a view. This is a grass spider web. And what I noticed about this is one blade of grass that web is wrapped around, maybe to another point over here, but that's a blade of grass. And just moving closer in on it, there's places where if you're in close to this, it doesn't even feel like it's connected. It's very hard to see the connection between it. And I think that's what happens for us in some ways. Like we forget how we are all on a weave and web in this world. So it's kind of this Indra's net of information. So just, again, just observing it, like it's what I feel from it. And here is like, I would never have known this before. So this shows one, the depth perception, like, how, focus changes over time. With a spider web, you might see it, you might not. If you're looking at it in a certain time of day, you see a spider web, and then later in the day you're like, oh, where'd it go? But it's just the angle, it's just the perspective. If you change your angle or move around it, you'll see it again. They also weave in some ultraviolet light material, like in their weave, so that the birds don't break the web. And that's sort of like a biomimic thing as well of thinking, because some people in Europe made these windows so that the birds wouldn't break through the windows, weaving in that kind of material. And so the humans don't see it, and the birds see the window. So it's sort of like a great biomimic solution. What I found fascinating about this one is that I didn't know they made that loop, like, because I never saw it anywhere that they make loops, but it makes so much sense because of all the feedback information they're getting, that's there. And, they, like I said, they do tune their webs. And I think it's sort of like, we wake up each day, and I'm much more aware of this if I'm standing by the water. Like every day it's different when I'm looking at water. when water is in my view, the light looks different, all the nature looks different. It's like it opens that field back up, is to have water in the view of it, if that makes sense to anybody else. But just
Great. Steph, can you wrap it up and talk a little bit about taking people into nature and the sensory exploration guiding, and then we'll bring Jim back in for closing.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Just one more thing here is just to talk about seeing, I just want to say seeing people and light on them. Right? So if you could see that people glow too. So I'm capturing that. And I'll come back off so you can see. Oh, hang on, let me just. Yes. Okay. I'm wrapping it up. So talking about people in nature is just that when people have sensory or anything issues, I take them into nature or wherever to help assist senses and sensing in different ways. So I'm good to wrapped up.
Yeah, beautiful. I was so moved, as I always am with your work. It's just so motivating about the lens that we all look at our world and the perception, and how you really brought so much more to the equation to think about because of all the challenges you faced, and then you went through them to find antidotes. And it really is so amazing that our capabilities are so untapped. That's kind of what my take is, and I'm sure a lot of people watching your presentation has felt the same. I mean, we have so much capabilities just with nature within us to expand it, and I invite Jim to come back in and the next few minutes ending here, and what your take was from Stefanie's presentation. We didn't get to the UFO pictures, but I think you can share those off screen maybe with Jim.
I will share them in this week.
Okay, cool. So do you need to come off shares? Because I don't see myself here.
Sorry.
And Jim also coming in.
But I think you're echoing stuff. Reasons.
Oh. I'm not on screen again, so I don't know what's happening, but
I can see you, Dehanna.
You can? I'm not on screen on my camera here. Let me try to come off this. I think I collapsed the gallery.
What I would say, Stefanie, is just sitting here listening to I can hear my echo. Can anybody else?
Yeah, Dehanna, I think you have to close your mic.
I think we're better now. Thank you. What was striking me as I was listening to you, Stefanie, is just how fortunate, in a way, you were to be handicapped as a young child in a way that compelled you to open up the doors of your perception. And I was realizing that sort of we normal people who have decent hearing and decent sight, we get accustomed to being very limited in the way that we perceive the world, and we think that's all there is. And so particularly your photographs where you were showing just like the little spider at the end, and the observations that you made is nothing I've ever even noticed before, because a spider web was just a spider web, and it is what it is. We don't seem to think very often more deeply than surface observation. So the capacity, like with Buckminster Fuller, who was nearsighted and had various physical perceptual problems. But he used that limitation actually as a portal for deeper mechanisms of perception. And as we all know from the spiritual traditions of the great mystical realms, it's the opening of the doors of perception that is the key to the enlightenment that we seek. And so I just was feeling that you have a real head start on the rest of us. So thank you for sharing that. It's quite moving.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dehanna.
Yeah, definitely. I think also theta, that was a fascinating part of your journey after going outside from the therapist space and looking at birds and coming back. And she's like, what did you do? You're in theta. So can you share a little bit more about that? Did you really notice something, or you're probably always in theta on some level with your perception?
Not always. Sorry, I have to turn your mic off.
Stephanie, you have another mic open, or
No,
because you're echoing?
I don't. I'm not echoing now,
Dehanna.
right?
It's
Yes, Dehanna.
Dehanna.
I know now when I'm in theta. I know that state that I just let my eyes rest out is theta from that experience. And, for some people call it samadhi, right? Because it's that state of feeling part of everything. And a lot of people get there through drugs. I think, like, just from what I'm feeling, observing, that maybe the optic nerve is really relaxed and it doesn't know how to do anything else, because that is the state apparently that we are in that early years of our lives, where we don't know how to use those muscles yet. So I just think it's the natural state that I would hold my eyes. So now I know when I'm doing it. As I said, I have almost like an on-off switch, where beforehand it would be hard for me to kind of get in a conversation, or normally like one-on-one I could, but in other ways it was more challenging due to how I was holding my eyes. So I think that there's so much information in that too, because I think people don't even understand it. Like Jim was just saying, like, that's why it almost took me, like the best experience I could tell you quickly about the stereo vision was I was driving, and my husband at the time was a pilot. So he was saying, like, driving was really hard for me, if you can imagine. I had to really follow the car in front of me in this weird way, or like the beams of light would be coming at me in the dark. It was so much information. So basically he was saying to me, just pan the road. And I remember like white knuckling the wheel at the time. And it's almost my only real like base point of remembering that feeling, where I was like, I can't pan the road. I can't take my eyes off the road for a minute. And then when I was told, oh, you have it, stereo vision, I was like, oh my God, you're right. And I could look around. I had all the time in the world after that. When beforehand, taking my attention off and needing to refocus took so much energy and time. And I think that that's a place where with kids or different people, like the energy it takes with the eyes, it's a lot, And it also, I think, with people who are on the spectrum of autism, what I've noticed is that they pick up so much information in the tiniest bit of time. And so like that hyperness of focus, that everything gets overwhelming because they pick up so much so quickly. And I think that's also a lens reshape of like understanding something differently, because we're thinking that they don't know what's going on, but they know so much what's going on. So I just think that these are different ways of changing the lens of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Stefanie, very much. It's been very, very illuminating in a profound ways. So thank you. Now, Dehanna, why don't you make whatever concluding remarks you would like, and then tee us up for tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much, Stefanie. That's always so invigorating to see your vision and how you used photography in such a unique way. I've been around photography, but not this type. So I really appreciate your vision and all the story surrounding it. I'm so excited to have you part of the team. And tomorrow I'm going to, it is such a gifted person, Shay's son on Mr. Sun, we call him, for sex and intimacy and all of his journey through that perspective in life and how important it is. I heard he was kept on the after chat yesterday for quite a while. People were still wanting more questions answered, and Stan had to pull him away, apparently. So get ready, buckle in, because this conversation tomorrow with Mr. Sun is really going to stir some things up for all of us.
Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Stefanie. That'll bring our session to a close for today, everyone. And then tomorrow we'll reconvene for our third of 5 sessions on how we can empower our youth. You're all welcome to the after session chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. And for those of you watching passively, you receive the link in your Zoom reminder an hour before this program. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye for now.
Thank you, Humanity Rising.